and welcome back to episode 2 of Flip of a Coin, the Docu-Series. Today we have a friend of mine named Tiffany who is going to be talking about how her anxiety and depression led her to a world of addiction. Let's all give a warm welcome to my friend Tiffany, and without further ado, let's get started on to episode 2. Today I have the lovely Tiffany here who has been so awesome to reach out and say that she wants to share her story with everyone. So please give a warm welcome to Tiffany. Tiffany, say hi.
Hi, I'm Tiffany.
So Tiffany, first of all, just tell us about yourself. Where are you from? What do you do? Just a little blurb about you.
Well, I'm born and raised in New Jersey. I spent just about 3 years living in Florida, which is where I met Jamie and many other awesome people working at Busch Gardens. In November 2019, it just felt like the right decision to move back home. So I've been home since then. And I now work in a daycare in New Jersey, and it's fun.
Awesome. Well, how did you find out about Flip of a Coin?
I actually think, Jamie, you invited me, or
did.
somebody else from Busch Gardens invited me, but I love the whole concept of it, the idea. I know for me personally, it's been very helpful. I even have one of my students' parents just joining because she's struggling with certain things, and I think it's a great place that all around the world, some like you could go together and support one another through like really difficult times in life.
And I'm really glad that as like the creator of it, that hearing your feedback, like it means the world to me, because at first I was so scared opening up that support group. So I'm like, what happens if no one posts in it or is not active? And it's just kind of like me saying hi and no one actually responds. So to see it turn into a flourishing community is amazing. So what made you want to do the interview? Like what inspired you to do an interview and talk to people from all over?
I think for me, it's more like just being able to give back. For years, I struggled with my own difficulties with addiction, mental health, and really the stigmas around it. And I wish, when I was really struggling at the worst, that there was this group around or something like this around. I'm a member of a 12-step fellowship, so that's where I was able to get hope and hear people's stories and hear how people really made it through some of their darkest times. And I guess I hope to be that for somebody else, who's gone through what I've gone through or is currently going through what I've gone through, and really just show them that like recovery is possible, and like we're not we don't like equal our mental illness, our addiction. We're so much more than the things we think hold us back.
Exactly. And that's a big thing that I try to preach to, is that you aren't your mental illness. So thank you for bringing that up again. So speaking of things that you've gone through, as much as you want to, I would love to hear about your story.
Yeah, so I don't really remember a lot of my early childhood. I don't know if I've just kind of blocked things out or what, but I don't remember a lot of it. One of my earliest memories is my parents like separation, and I was probably 9 or 10 years old, and I guess that's really where like depression started creeping in and anxiety, and I became very, very close friends with my neighbor when I was 12, 13 years old. And his house was like my safe haven. And I, spent all of my free time there, and that's where I had like my first drink, my first cigarette. I was sexually assaulted by his dad from on and off between like ages 12 and 13. And I was so naive at the time that I believed every time it was an accident, like he said. He was in his 50s, and he would have me and his son wrestle each other, and I was always kind of like a tomboy in that aspect, that like I was all for wrestling and roughhousing with the boys. And I remember as I got older and like put the pieces together, his dad's hand, he would join us wrestling and his hands would accidentally slip places they should have never been. Starting in middle school, I know, Jamie, you talked a lot in your video about like looking for that control aspect. So for me, like what I learned that I was able to control, or I thought I was able to control, was self-harming. Um, I was a cutter for 10 years on and off. I liked that I was able to control how much I bled, how many cuts I made. And it was what I thought it was just a very healthy outlet. And again, it took me years to realize it's definitely not healthy. So that was really, I guess, my first addiction. Starting in high school, I started filling up water bottles full of vodka or some other clear liquor, and I would drink all day long. And it kind of went on like that for a couple of years. That was my escape. I didn't know how to deal with mental illness. I didn't understand it. I didn't know why I felt the way I felt, but I was all for trying any way I possible to like get rid of how I felt and change how I felt. And that led me down a whole spiral of darkness and addictions. So my story really revolved more. My mental illness completely drove me to the disease of addiction. They went hand in hand for me. For years, I was addicted to many substances. I put myself in all sorts of horrible situations because it was somehow still better than the way I felt. And there's one quote I pulled up, and it says, "I drank to drown the pain, but the pain learned to swim." And
Wow.
that's really where my life started heading. No matter what I was doing, I just still felt so much internal pain. I first entered recovery in December 2016. I went to my first rehab in Florida, and all I did was compare myself to other people, that like I possibly can't have these problems because X, Y, and Z did not happen to me. And what I learned was, first of all, they didn't happen to me yet. All the things that I swore would never happen to me, eventually in the last couple of years, they did. And the reason I was drinking and using drugs was no longer working. I was doing those things to escape how I was feeling and escape this pain. And in the end, I was realizing it just caused me more pain, or pain in different aspects. It took me a really long time, a lot of rehab and a lot more pain until I made a decision to, that enough was enough. And one of my favorite like sayings is, you can't pour from an empty cup. So until Tiffany was right with Tiffany, like I was essentially useless to anybody else. No matter how much I tried to help people, I always swore I made things worse. And it was really because I wasn't taking care of myself in any aspect. Another quote that I love, and this is where my life is at today, was, "My drug and drink of choice was more, but no matter how much I tried to, no amount of anything could fill that God-sized hole inside me except a spiritual awakening. Recovery gave me that gift, and for that I'm grateful." It didn't matter how much sex I had. It didn't matter how much I drank, how many pills I took, how many things I snorted. It did not make a difference because I had to feel awful every time. And I'm gonna, my clean date is August 25th, 2019. So I'm coming up on a year clean, and my life is just amazing today. I still struggle, but I'm able to see the silver lining. And this last quote I'm going to close with, because it helps me so much, and I can say today that like most of my wounds have been healed. So this quote says, "Until you heal the wounds of your past, you are going to bleed. You can bandage the bleeding with food, with alcohol, with drugs, and work, but eventually it'll all ooze through and stain your life. You must find the strength to open the wounds, stick your hands inside, pull out the core of the pain that is holding you in your past, the memories, and make peace with them.
So you talked a lot about your addiction, and you also mentioned at the beginning that you had dealt with anxiety and depression. So I'm just wondering, was it the anxiety and depression that led to your addiction? And maybe elaborate on what you felt during those times.
What I was feeling, the anxiousness over everything, and the depression, and just hopeless and loneliness, those were all things that tied in. And I wanted to change how I felt. And the ways that I learned how to do that were through drugs, alcohol, self-harming. Yes, the depression and anxiety is what led me to pick up that drug, or pick up that bottle of alcohol. And then it goes a step further. Once that enters me, that substance enters me, there's something in my brain like is wired differently, and I can't control what happens next. So while one person could pick up a drug, hate it, and never try it again, my brain tells me, like, go do it again and again and again. And we call it the phenomenon of craving. It's cunning, it's baffling, it's powerful, and so important for people like me that, like, once we do stop, to just not pick up again. And it takes a lot of work on a daily basis. Every day, I have to work on what I need to do to not pick up again. But it's definitely possible. And I had to kind of basically start from the end this time, work with removing the drugs and alcohol, and then sit there and be able to focus and backtrack to, like, what caused me to use in the beginning. And for me, that was a very challenging thing to do for a long time, was make peace with my demons. For instance, I've been raped, I've been sexually assaulted, I've been abused. And for so many years, I let those things define who I was as a person. And I've learned to almost find gratitude in that. I'm not a victim, I'm a survivor. And anybody can have that option to be a survivor. It starts with your mindset. And yes, some people need professional help to get to that place where their mindset has shifted. Some people just need faith in themselves, faith in something. So I'm beyond grateful to be a part of this group. Um, to be clean and sober today is a beautiful thing. I'm no longer afraid of my feelings, but I embrace them.
Wow. Well, thank you so much for sharing that. That's a lot to have gone through. So you're definitely extremely strong, and I'm sure a role model to anyone who is watching this who has dealt with this or is dealing with this. So thank you so much for sharing that. Do you believe that stigma is a huge part of the mental health community and is a big reason why some people don't get help? You were fortunate enough to do get help, but there's a lot of people who don't because of that stigma.
Absolutely. I know people personally who have committed suicide. That was better for them or easier for them than to be able to experience what the world is going to throw their way when the truth came out. The first time I really, I guess, saw the stigma in it, I worked at a Quick Check, which is like a convenience store gas station up north. And I was addicted to drugs. I was in a very dark place mentally, and my family, this was around the time they first started finding out how severe my drug addictions were. And I worked at the same shop for over a year, and I needed a couple, like, 2 weeks off to go get some help professionally and just get my life somewhat back in order. And after never missing a shift, never calling out, picking up extra shifts, like bending over backwards for this job, when I told my boss, what was really going on with me, that my head was in a very bad space and I just needed some time off to, like, gather my thoughts and seek help. I was told my job wouldn't be there for me. And that's really when I realized that there's not a lot of people who understand these things. So I 100% know that there is still such a horrible stigma around it, and it's things that are completely beyond our control. You know, I hope that one day we have a society that's more understanding of it. I think we're headed in the right direction, but there's still a lot more education that needs to be had by multiple people.
Definitely agreed. I did so many studies, and 64% of the people who are actually diagnosed with something don't go to get help. And it's mostly because of what their coworkers will think, or their family, or their friends. And it's just awful. So hopefully
Yeah.
this group
And I
can do.
remember I remember like telling my parents when I at a younger age, like what I was feeling, and their response would be, it's all in your head. And like, yes, that is the problem, is it's in my head. It is my mind.
And it goes back to that thing, that saying with depression, just snap out of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
Like, oh, I've never thought to do that.
I know, like that's so simple.
Right? Yeah, like, oh, 1 second.
Yeah. I know that recovery, especially from an addiction that has lasted as long as yours did, and with so many different substances, that recovery process must have been hard. So what were some coping mechanisms that you
Yeah.
used throughout it?
I love writing. Writing has been tremendously helpful for me. Um, I was given assignments and treatment of things that I never thought I would write about that ended up being the most healing experience. I've written letters to the men that raped me. Now, obviously, I'm never going to send those letters out, but that really allowed me to face these things head on. Music helps me on a daily basis. Um, just hearing other people that are going through the same things. There's so many songs about mental health, about just anything. Like, you can basically find a song that relates to anything you're going through, and that's why I love music so much. I have happy music, sad music, like whatever I'm feeling, there's music out there.
Well, it's great that you've able to find the skills in a creative way like that. 'Cause writing and music, like you said, there's always something that relates to how you're feeling, and it helps knowing that you're not alone when you hear an artist sing about whatever you're going through. So I'm a huge advocate for that as well. Well, unfortunately, we don't have all day because I would love to keep talking with you. So what are some final words of encouragement that you would say to anyone who is dealing with this, who is in recovery, who has gone through this?
My one of my favorite things is, I was told many years ago, is to put your hand over your heart and feel it. It's your heartbeat. And for me, I tell people on a daily basis, as long as you have that heartbeat, there is hope. There is another chance. For me, I took many chances, or one last chance. Um, and tomorrow is a new day. And I actually have tattooed on my back, it's the verse John 1:5 in the Bible. And it says, the light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it. And for me, like, that held so much meaning. And that's the reason it's tattooed on me, is because I need that daily reminder every day that no matter how dark and bleak everything is, there is light. And as long as there's light, there's hope. So that's what I would leave off anybody with, is it's never too late. You are more than capable of having the life you want for yourself. It takes work, it takes tears, it takes a lot of patience. And I'm a firm believer that things happen when they're supposed to. And for me, I had to fall apart personally so everything could fall into place.
I love that. Yeah, I'm a firm believer in that too, that everything happens for a reason, and the universe has a very interesting way of making things work out in the end.
Yeah,
Well,
100%.
Tiffany, thank you so much for joining me today for this amazing episode, and for being so honest and open and encouraging. And since you talked about so many quotes during your interview, I'm going to end with one that I personally love that says, "You are not your illness. You have a name, a history, a personality. Staying yourself is the battle."
Mm.
So, Tiffany, have an amazing, today's what, Sunday? Have an amazing rest of your week.
You too.
And I will talk to you soon. Thank you so much.
Bye.
So major shout out to Tiffany and how brave she was being able to share her story and hopefully inspire anyone who is going through anything similar or anyone who is dealing with anything related to mental health. So I'm so proud of her for sharing her story. If you want to share your story, please, 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 please comment down below. So don't forget to like, subscribe, share. You can also check out my first video where I talk about how I've dealt with obsessive compulsive disorder my whole life. And please subscribe to see future episodes. This channel is all about mental health and breaking that stigma. So please help to break the stigma. If you have any topics that you would love to hear about, please again comment down below and I'll make sure to make videos about them. Thank you all so much for following my journey. Remember to stay strong, stay positive. You are all beautiful and amazing and I'm very proud of all of you. Have a wonderful week and I'll see you next time.